born was just this agonizing over, do we continue jabs and for the sake of keeping kinder? And eventually, thank God, we decided we felt we had the strength and the courage to go, no, we're not going to do further shots and we'll take him out. But I think it's cost me friendships in the end. Not people who probably would have been lifelong friends, because I think anyone who writes you off based on your decision over this is probably not worth having as a friend, but it hurt a lot. And it definitely impacted my son's experience. He doesn't now get to go ahead with his little friends that he had last year to go into 4-year-old kinder, and he doesn't get to go with them into prep, and he doesn't get all that integration between our local kindergarten and our local primary school. So he misses out on that, which I think is awful. And I miss out on, the friendship circle that I had. So it's been a horrible experience. I think I didn't like being in the position where I had to choose my son's education or his health, and I feel like we made the decision to choose his health. But I don't think that's a position any parent should be in. And yeah, it's been a hard chapter that I'm kind of glad's over.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure since the no jab, no play laws came in, there would be a lot of parents in that same situation who've been through that.
Yeah, there definitely are. And I think one thing, advice for parents in the same situation, the one is keep your head down and keep your mouth shut, because the less people who know about your stance, the better. That's from a selfish perspective. I think to make this okay in the future, it's better if we do talk about it, and it's better if people are open and it's okay to have an opinion that's not the status quo. But there's heaps of options popping up in different communities for kids to mix and have a kinder-like experience. And I think for me, with all the added drama that I went through with kinder, it felt so overwhelming to then start trying to think of how to put together an at-home kinder program. I just didn't have the energy, but I think there are people all over who have the energy for that. There's play groups. There's Steiner School run a couple of different styles of play groups. Some are like a rostered stay and play, drop your kids and go off if you're on the roster every now and then. So there's definitely options cropping up for kids, for parents. And I think in our experience, we've ended up with our son at a little independent farm school doing part-time prep. And then he can do full-time prep next year. And it's just turned out perfect for us. But I know that it's not a disaster if they don't get kinder. It's not worth putting their health at risk over just to get kinder. It's not the most fantastic system in the world anyway.
Yeah, well, there's kids older than that who don't go to school and just homeschool.
Yeah,
they still get a good experience and a good education. So there's definitely other options out there. Yeah, and if you connect with other people who are doing similar thing to you. The crazy thing is, all these people who are paranoid about your child being at kinder unvaccinated, but there's swim groups and there's play groups and there's play centres and there's no check on there, so they don't realise that they're mixing with unvaccinated kids all the time. But there's definitely options for kids to get socialisation and to get a really good pre-educational experience as well. Yeah. Well, I hope it doesn't get to that stage where they monitor who goes to playgroup, who goes to swimming lessons.
I know.
That would be a massive breach of our rights.
Hasn't stopped them so far, though, has it?
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's the reason why and I know it can be sort of self-preservation to keep quiet about this, but if we don't open this up for conversation and I guess make it a bit more normal for people to question vaccinations and be able to do their own research so they can make their own informed choice. If people are just too scared to think about it, to talk about it, to do their own research and to make that informed choice, then I guess we could be headed to something like that. Exactly.
And I think, I said that I regret speaking up on Facebook and stuff, but I actually don't, because I think I've got a few friends they've suddenly realised through what I've been putting on Facebook that there's something to question, and they have started questioning, and I've got a couple who've decided to stop vaccinating their kids based on, not me, but some stuff that they read that I've posted, and just learning to question stuff. And so, for me, I feel like, well, there's a couple of kids that are saved through being public about it. I think if normal people don't speak up and show that, yes, a normal educated person can have an alternative view to Australian vaccination policy, then we're in a pretty sad place. So. Yeah.
Well, I guess at the expense of your own, I guess, like mental torment and stagnation of your child's education. It's I guess a reasonable outcome.
Notwithstanding that.
This is a section that Claire and I recorded after doing the main recording of the podcast, because we realised that there was a few different things that we had missed and that we wanted to come back and meet and talk about again. So that's probably why this part might seem like it doesn't flow very well with the rest of the recording, but I hope that you still understand what it's all about and get something out of it. So Claire, did you want to talk a little bit about what you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about how we felt that the laws in Victoria, particularly, and they're coming into play around the rest of the country as well, but how the laws are quite invasive of our human rights and our rights as parents to choose medical procedures for our kids. And we've been, the whole community of people who are choosing not to vaccinate or choosing to discontinue vaccinations seem quite shocked that the rest of the population is quite happy for these laws to pass. Even though, yes, because they support vaccination and that's part of it, but also as parents, should they not support our right to choose medical procedures for our kids? And I think my conclusion as to why the rest of the population is happy for this stuff to fly through legislation is because of a very successful media brainwashing campaign that basically convinces parents that unvaccinated children pose a threat and that they spread disease and that their other children are at risk. And the one that always gets thrown out to me is, the kids who are too young to be vaccinated and the kids who are immunocompromised or, going through cancer treatment or whatever. Yep. And I think in our situation, I talked a little bit about what we went through with our kinder and being bullied for our choice to stop vaccinating. And I think it was all fresh in everybody's mind that our kinder, that we had a little girl last year who had cancer and was going through chemotherapy. It was a tragic situation. And everyone obviously felt for this little girl and her family. And so I think that was all fresh in everyone's mind when they realized that there were at least one family and a couple more who were choosing not to vaccinate. So, and I think that's quite a common argument that you see in the media that, we've got to protect, we've got to do this, we've got to do the greater good and we've got to protect the herd and all this sort of stuff. And actually, it's not true. So there's quite a lot of literature that I've come across, and I don't know if you can post a link maybe at the end of the podcast. There's a Harvard immunologist who wrote a really easy to read, articulate article around the actual facts around vaccine herd immunity and that sort of concept. And actually that most of the vaccines that are in the schedule, she was talking about the American situation, but it's applicable to Australia as well. So most of the vaccines in the current childhood schedule they're not designed to protect the population. They're designed to minimize symptoms of the person being infected. So one example is the hepatitis B, that you have to have your child immunized against hepatitis B to go to kinder and childcare. So you can have a child enrolled who is carrying hepatitis and they can't be discriminated against, but you can't have a child there who is not immunized, vaccinated against hepatitis. Whereas the vaccination, contracting hepatitis is almost impossible for children in that setting. So it only provides protection to the child, not to the community. The other one is, so a lot of the influenza Hib strain is a particular strain that we vaccinate against is actually not the strain that's dangerous and causing disease and damage in our populations in Australia, and that's largely because of vaccination. So the strains have shifted to other, exactly. So E, which is we're not vaccinated against this E strain, and that's the one that's actually causing harm. So, and the pertussis one, which is whooping cough, that vaccine is actually not designed to stop the spread of whooping cough. And that was proved to me. I've read about it, but I contacted the Royal Children's Immunisation Clinic because I was trying to get a titer test after I'd done the first one for pertussis. I was trying to get a titer test to prevent me having to do the booster. And I got bounced around from place to place and eventually got put onto the head scientist at the Royal Children's, who said, no, there is no such thing as an antibody test for the whooping cough vaccine because the vaccine is not designed to generate antibodies. It's designed to symptom minimized. So basically you would contract it, but if you'd been vaccinated, your symptoms would be minimal and it would sort of present as a cold. And so that was unbelievable to me that she was actually willing to tell me that no, it's not designed to generate antibodies. It's actually designed to stop you getting really sick from it. So you've got children, new babies and immunocompromised kids who are coming into contact all the time with kids who could be carrying whooping cough, but you don't have any idea that they're carrying whooping cough. So, and the same goes on for most of the vaccines that we've got on our schedule. Most of them are not designed to stop spread. They're designed for personal protection. The measles one is meant to be designed to stop the spread of measles. But the truth of it is that actually kids who are vaccinated against measles they have live shedding for up to 4 weeks after they've had their vaccine. So they have the vaccine, the body mounts an immune response, which, antibodies, and that actually causes a shedding of measles. And so most measles outbreaks, so-called outbreaks, have actually been from previously vaccinated kids who've been shedding. And that's been proved there's multiple outbreaks in 100% immunized populations around the world that shows that measles definitely spreads in fully vaccinated populations. Whereas kids who acquire measles naturally, yes, they would be potentially contagious for a couple of days before they show symptoms. So they could have measles and they could be spreading it, but it would be about 2 days before their symptoms would be visible. Whereas vaccinated kids, it's about 4 weeks that they can be contagious. So for measles, it's actually the unvaccinated kids pose a lower risk than vaccinated kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is largely, most people don't realize this because it's not given to you in the media. And so people do think that we are being irresponsible by not protecting the herd and not doing our bit. But basically what they're asking us to do is ignore the evidence and also to put our child at risk to save a child that we don't know, or to save a child that potentially could become immunocompromised. Meantime, any child that's immunocompromised and going through chemo actually have to stay away from everybody who's even got so much as a cold. That if they're that sick, they wouldn't actually be coming to kinder. And I think either way, if I have a procedure that I know can cause my child harm, I'm not going to choose to put them in harm's way to protect a child that I might meet and might get sick from something that my child may or may not be carrying, when I'm very aware that those children would be at probably more risk from the rest of the vaccinated population. And I think that's an argument that most people don't hear, and it's definitely an argument that I've had thrown at me by friends or people I come across who realize that I've stopped vaccinating, is that they think it's a selfish choice. And I think that argument is largely born out of ignorance. So I'm hoping that, if we talk about it, we educate people and we aren't sort of labeled as these selfish people who care only about our own kids, because obviously that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been reading through this article that you mentioned. So the writer, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name correctly, but I'll give it a go.
I know, it's a Russian name, I think.
Tatyana. I'll book her.
Tatyana, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to say her last name, but she holds a PhD in immunology. So I've just been looking at this article and I've underlined a few different things. So it says up here that the diphtheria toxoid vaccine is not designed to prevent colonization and transmission of C. diphtheriae.
Yeah.
And vaccinating for diphtheria cannot alter the safety of public spaces. It is likewise intended for personal protection only. So that's basically what you're saying. I'm just reading the quote.
Yeah.
For people listening, if they want a reference.
I think she goes through every single vaccine that's on our schedule and gives us an example of why they're not. Why they're not designed to protect the greater good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So she talks about the DTaP. She talks about Hep B, and she says discriminating against children who are not vaccinated for HIB does not make any scientific sense in the era of non-type BH influenza disease. So, and then I think she goes on and talks about, she talks about war. I've just underlined those ones so far. She talks about measles.
I think, Yeah, I was sort of paraphrasing what she said. It wasn't my, I was kind of quoting her, what I was saying earlier about the measles.